Welcome back to Red Pill Raw Truth. We're discussing the court cases of 9/11, and where do we get to? We can continue from where we left off.
Yeah, we're talking about the appeal and how it was decided that, you know, this is an appeal for should it be dismissed or not. Now, remember, the defendants are the military, many members of the military-industrial complex, and you have 5 supporters of this case. What do you think the judges want to do? But the judges were respectful. This is the Court of Appeals. They were respectful. They acknowledged the law applied to my case, but they're ignoring the law in order to dismiss the case. That's respectful. And if this case had gone forward, if there was enough support for this case and it had gone forward and they couldn't ignore it, then we moved to discover we can put people under oath. Isn't that what the truthers wanted? Put people under oath? And one of the first people to put under oath, of course, is somebody from ARA who, their company are manufacturers and developers of energy weapons. They also have a contract to know everything about any weapon of mass destruction that exists or is being developed anywhere. So not only can they identify what weapon it is, they very, very likely know whose weapon it was that was used. That's the closest anyone could ever possibly hope to get in this. I'm not going on speculation. That's, the people who know who did it would be right there on the witness stand. You can't get any better than that. So you can see why...
By doing things in right order, so by doing things in right order, you get to, without knowing who did it, you end up getting the people who did it by following the procedure, if you know what I mean.
So, but without support for this case, so in whose interest was it to keep truthers from knowing about this case?
Well, the perpetrators, the people who were behind the technology that did it.
Or behind the plan for whatever's, the people who want to keep the cover-up in place, we'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Because it would end the cover-up.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's the best way to put it. If my case had gone forward, it would be an end to the cover-up.
Yeah.
And
so the architects and engineers for truth, they're asking for what you gave them, and they
covered it up.
They just covered it up.
They covered up my case. It seems like that. Well, I do know that people who brought my case forth, to Richard Gage were banned from Gage's group. They emailed Gage about the case, and then they got banned for it. There's several of those instances. Because they didn't want other people. He didn't want to these people to contaminate, the ignorant group of people who just didn't know about the case.
Yeah. Well, anybody who brings your work
to
gets banned, don't they? Yeah.
I'd like to just mention. I'd like to just mention here that the reason, I was talking about this last night at a talk I gave in Hull in the UK, and somebody asked the question, well, why don't you want this, about 9/11 to be revealed? Why are the architects and engineers group covering up what happened on 9/11? This is what they couldn't understand. And my answer to them was the fundamental thing which needs to be covered up by the people that are doing the covering up is the connection between energy and 9/11, and the fact that this energy technology, whatever name you give to it, we know that it involves energy and the control of energy, the direction of energy. That has to be covered up, and whatever way they can cover it up, that's kind of secondary, really. They can set up a group, to talk about thermite or nanothermite, and they can give them that group a few $1 million to keep their operation going by sending these people on 30-day tours of various cities.
To collect anybody else who's fallen out of the first net.
Exactly. So, but the primary goal is to keep the connection between what happened at the World Trade Center and possibly the other sites as well, but definitely at the World Trade Center. The energy weapons were involved, and that technology could have other uses. This is what, and it has a history which is somehow, in some way, shape, or form, connected to what the scientists Pons and Fleischmann discovered in their process, which was then badly named as cold fusion.
By
In
Stephen
simple
Jones.
terms, if people are having trouble following all the details and the ins and outs of the court case and whatnot, which is, is sort of it's a long story basically, then if I can just explain to people that the reason for all of that being covered up is to do with energy, really.
I would like to add to that. So, okay, it wasn't bin Laden running airplanes into the building. It was bin Laden's crew putting bombs in the building. Everything else is exactly the same in the story after that.
Yes, yes.
So it doesn't matter which of those stories, but if it's, something to do with energy, a different type of technology, that's a whole different animal altogether.
Yes, and then of course the other things that have to be covered up. I mean, we've had discussions. I think Matthew may have even talked about it just a little bit in the first program that we did, and that I think is why the Stephen E. Jones character has kind of gone into the background quite a lot. He's occasionally sort of stuck
surfaces.
His head up. Yeah,
but he watches daily. He watches it.
He does appear to be watching things, and so by about 2007.
Whoops! I dropped out.
Hello.
Knowledge then, and it had grown a little bit.
Yeah, I heard you say about by 2007. Then it went off after. I got disconnected after that.
I think you dropped.
Oh, did I?
So
I was saying that Stephen E. Jones was sort of fairly prominent in 2006, and then in 2007, he seemed to sort of fade out of the picture a little bit around the time these court cases were.
Well, it was also it's like he handed the baton over to Richard Gage. I saw that at that time. That's what it looked like. And Gage, not being a scientist, doesn't have to answer scientific questions.
Yes, yes. So that was a clear kind of change of mode of the cover-up, which has continued since that time. And I think, as Dr. Wood said, Gage can basically pretty much say more or less what he likes, as long as he's got the right sort of language and the right presentation to rope people in, and as long as he is being skeptical of the official account of what happened on 9/11 and mainly at the World Trade Center, then he can get away with pretty much anything. He can give them any story that has vague plausibility to it, and that's the way the cover-up works.
Yeah, as I've been saying to Matthew, that they need it to be organic, but they just need to make a little adjustment on this side, over here, over there. So, yeah, Jones got it off and running in a particular direction, then sat back, and then if it needs adjustment, he might poke it here or there, but he doesn't have a hands-on part of it. And I think that's kind of the way it goes. So if people feel like they're participating, they brought this, like David Chandler, arguing about, well, this fall of whatever. But if he starts going off onto those flying pieces trailing dust and doesn't say, oh, that's evidence of thermite, he's not going to be their poster boy. So he's going to say what they want him to say. He's given a leeway within the margins, so that he can say things that aren't too damaging for keeping the energy issue out of it.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, a lot of people don't notice these details and inconsistencies, because they don't study it closely enough, or they don't have an analytical background, so they don't see this kind of organic process, and how it changes. The other thing which I think seems to have been happening in the last couple of years is that the role of this Veterans Today website seems to have kind of increased a little bit, and I'm basically judging that on the number of people that I've seen reposting the Veterans Today articles, or sending them on by email, or reposting them on Facebook. And they, of course, are not really thermite oriented, although you will find articles about thermite on there. They've been quite heavily promoting this Fetzer's nuke, nonsense
Mini, micro,
on
nano
there.
nukes.
Yeah, and the various flavors of that. So again,
We're coming up to spray on nukes soon.
Yeah. So again, as long as it doesn't make the connection to an energy process, which involves some type of nuclear process as well, as long as these connections are kept out of the picture, they can get away with that as well, and they're quite happy if they can convince people that nuclear devices were involved. And they don't really care, for example, whether these stories are inconsistent between mini, micro, nano, or pre-planted in the building when they were constructed, and this sort of thing. That's not really important as long as they keep people away from the knowledge of tritium and cold fusion and so forth.
It's also interesting. Yeah, Fetzer will mention tritium, but only to bash me, claiming I ignore it,
Yes.
which is not true at all. To me, it's a red flag of something. But one thing that becomes quite clear to anyone who starts looking at this is the nukers don't attack the mini nukers. They don't try to destroy them. They'll do some, slight name calling to make it look good, but they're best buddies. And the mini nukers don't, destroy the thermite folks, and the thermite folks don't destroy, all of those folks are all, buddies together. One thing is clear, they all are very, very harsh about Dr. Wood.
Yeah, it's like WWF wrestlers.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah. That's a beautiful analogy. It's a game
it's all
that gets
staged
played.
as well, so that is a good analogy because a lot of that was staged, wasn't it?
Yeah. And so but they don't do stuff like put out false stories saying whatever. You can fill in the blanks. I'm not even going to give them airtime, but there's like there's this one particular article on Veterans Today called "The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly," and it's nothing but character assassination, full force, pulling out all the stops. You don't see anything like that against any other person looking into 9/11.
Yeah.
No.
And it's something I've been looking into more recently is, this is a little bit of a tangent, but is journalistic integrity in the mainstream. And the standards people are brought to, they may not talk about certain things, but they don't put out, super lies. They'd be held accountable. They hung out to dry if they put out fake stories. And I was looking into
though, yeah?
What?
You're talking mainstream here, not
Yeah,
alternative.
mainstream media would be hung out to dry, and they have. There's been some just a few cases over history where it found out that the people didn't have source information; they made it up, and those people were destroyed. Their reputation for life was destroyed. And there's one guy who did something in the late 90s, and just earlier this year he'd taken his case to the California Supreme Court because they weren't allowing him to get a lawyer's license, even though he graduated at the top of his class from law school. He passed the bar exam with flying colors, but they wouldn't let him be a lawyer because he lacked integrity, because he put out these fake stories. And speaking of, that wasn't the Jason Blair guy, but the other one, Stephen Glass. And he said, he's just rotten to the core. No hope for him. And apply that to Veterans Today. Man, it's just night and day. I mean, there's just, and it's clear there's absolutely no accountability. If people make statements and there's no backing it up, there's absolutely nothing behind it. And so there's no standards whatsoever. But anyway, you're talking about the court cases. So they have to make it seem like there's court cases because Dr. Wood has a court case, and they don't want to look like they're not doing a court case.